Above Eldrith Prime, the sky burned with streaking contrails of descending ships, their fiery trails cutting through the heavens and casting jagged shadows over the besieged city. The air vibrated with the distant hum of alien engines, a haunting melody that sent shivers down the spines of its inhabitants. The Galactic Alliance had fought valiantly for years, but the enemy was relentless, adaptive, and merciless. Eldrith Prime, once a symbol of unity and strength, was now the last bastion of resistance in a galaxy on the brink of submission. In the heart of the city's command center, chaos reigned. Officers barked orders, their voices strained with desperation, while holographic displays flickered with alerts and incomprehensible streams of data. General Kale Varos, a seasoned warrior with sharp features and weary eyes, stood at the center of the storm, his gaze fixed on the primary screen. The map showed the inexorable advance of the Trillion Swarm, their biomechanical ships engulfing sector after sector. How long until they breached the inner defenses? Kale demanded, his voice slicing through the commotion with precision and urgency. A young lieutenant, her uniform stained with soot and sweat, hesitated before responding. 4 hours, sir. At best. Kale's jaw tightened. 4 hours wasn't enough time to evacuate the city, let alone mount a counteroffensive. He turned to the grim-faced council of planetary leaders gathered nearby. We need reinforcements, Kale said firmly. If we're to have any chance of holding the line, we must deploy every available resource. One of the counselors, a frail yet sharp-eyed woman named Morel, shook her head. General, we've exhausted our fleets and our allies. The swarm's strength grows with every world they consume. There is no one left to call upon. Kale's fist clenched, but before he could reply, a calm, measured voice broke through the din. What about the humans? The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Admiral Selratan, a figure as enigmatic as she was respected. Her silver hair and piercing gaze commanded attention, but it was the weight of her words that held the room captive. Humans? Morel's tone dripped with skepticism. They're isolated, unpredictable, and unproven. What could they possibly do against the swarm? Precisely because they're unpredictable, Selra countered. They don't follow our doctrines. They adapt, innovate, and thrive under pressure. If there's anyone capable of defying the swarm's patterns, it's them. Kale's eyes narrowed. He had heard tales of humanity's peculiar tactics, their refusal to accept defeat even when the odds were insurmountable. But they were tales, nothing more. Legends born of desperation. Do we even know where they stand? Kale asked. The last contact with Earth was over a decade ago. Selra nodded. We've maintained a covert observer network. They've been quiet, but their technological advancements are undeniable. We've seen the results in their trade vessels, their probes. They're capable, General. And more importantly, they're desperate to prove themselves. A murmur rippled through the room. Kale turned back to the display, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Trusting an unknown factor like humanity was a gamble, but at this point, it seemed the galaxy had little choice. Send the signal, Kale ordered. Offer them whatever they need. If they accept, Earth will lead the counteroffensive. Light years away, on the fringes of the Sol system, Commander Tessa Vale stood aboard the bridge of the Aegis, a human warship brimming with unorthodox weaponry and experimental defenses. She was reviewing routine patrol reports when a high-priority transmission lit up her console. The Galactic Alliance emblem rotated slowly on the screen, and beneath it, the words, "Emergency Request." Tessa frowned and tapped the interface. The message unfolded, detailing the desperate state of the Alliance and their plea for humanity's intervention. A slow grin spread across her face. About time they realized who they need, she muttered. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Aaron Zhao, raised an eyebrow. You think we should answer? Last I checked, the Alliance didn't exactly roll out the welcome mat for us. They didn't, Tessa agreed. But this isn't about them. This is about showing the galaxy what we're capable of. Prep the fleet. We're heading to Eldrith Prime. As the Aegis powered up, its engines glowing with an almost organic light, the surrounding fleet followed suit. Humanity had been preparing in quiet defiance, readying itself for a moment that would redefine its place in the galaxy. That moment had now arrived. The Trillion Swarm's vanguard descended upon Eldrith Prime with the precision of a predator closing in on its prey. Their ships, grotesque amalgamations of organic and mechanical components, pulsed with an eerie bioluminescence. Defensive turrets fired desperately, but the swarm adapted, their hulls shifting and hardening against the onslaught. Kale's gaze fixed on the inner defenses, his expression tightening as the steadfast line began to fragment under the swarm's unrelenting advance. Each breach felt like another step toward inevitable collapse. "Where are they?" he muttered under his breath. As if in answer, the space above Eldrith Prime ignited with a burst of light. A fleet of sleek, angular ships emerged from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming with an intensity that seemed to defy the darkness of the void. At their center was the Aegis, its presence radiating an air of quiet menace. "This is Commander Tessa Vale of the Human Defense Fleet," came the voice over the comms, calm and laced with confidence. "We're here to clean up your mess." The Alliance forces faltered for a moment, their disbelief palpable, but Kale recovered quickly. "All units regroup around the human fleet. Provide cover fire and hold the line." The swarm's vanguard adjusted their formation, turning their attention to the newcomers. But as the first wave of attackers approached, the humans unleashed their response. Beams of advanced energy, honed through humanity's relentless innovation, carved through the swarm's vessels, reducing their defenses to shambles in mere moments. Experimental drones darted through the chaos, targeting weak points with uncanny accuracy. On the bridge of the Aegis, Tessa leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Let's show them how it's done. Deploy the disruptor array." The disruptor array unleashed a ripple of energy, cascading through the enemy ranks and causing their formation to shudder and falter. The swarm's ships faltered, their organic systems spasming as the humans exploited vulnerabilities no one else had thought to target. Cheers erupted across the Alliance comm channels as the tide of battle began to shift. Kale watched in awe as the humans dismantled the vanguard with ruthless efficiency. For the first time in years, a spark of hope ignited within him. But as the swarm retreated to regroup, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The stars around Eldrith Prime flickered faintly as the swarm adjusted their tactics, withdrawing their vanguard into a disciplined, coiled formation designed for a focused counterstrike. The organic components of their ships pulsed in eerie synchrony, shifting and evolving to neutralize the sudden, unanticipated threat posed by humanity's fleet. From the bridge of the Aegis, Commander Tessa Vale observed the enemy's movements with a critical eye. "They're learning," she muttered, her tone carrying a mix of admiration and disdain. Lieutenant Zhao leaned over his console, frowning. "They're coordinating their adaptive defenses to focus on our energy weapons. We'll lose the element of surprise if they counter too quickly." "They're fast, but so are we," Tessa replied, a small smirk forming. "Zhao, prepare the pulse disruptors and load the nullifier rounds. Let's see how they handle kinetic force." Zhao nodded, his hands flying across the controls. The Aegis and its fleet shifted their formation, their sleek, angular designs moving with precision. On the tactical display, the swarm ships began to close the gaps in their defenses, their glowing hulls now shimmering with a layer of energy that seemed to absorb incoming fire. "Incoming transmission from General Kale Varos," the comms officer announced. Tessa turned sharply. "Patch it through?" Kale's face appeared on the holographic display, his expression grim but focused. "Commander Vale, your timing is impeccable, but the swarm is unlike anything we've faced. Do you have a plan to deal with their adaptation capabilities?" Tessa's smirk widened. "General, humanity thrives on adaptability. Let me show you." As the swarm's fleet advanced, their ships radiated an ominous, pulsating glow. From a distance, it appeared almost hypnotic, but Tessa's gaze never wavered. She saw the coordinated shifts in their formation, the way they angled their vessels to absorb and deflect incoming fire. They weren't just a fleet, they were a hive, and every move was calculated with chilling precision. "Pulse disruptors ready," Zhao reported. "Fire," Tessa ordered. The Aegis unleashed a barrage of shimmering, cyan-colored pulses that cascaded outward in rhythmic waves, disrupting the void with their synchronized intensity. The disruptor waves struck the swarm's vessels, momentarily severing the connection between their organic and mechanical systems. Ships faltered mid-flight, their glowing hulls dimming as the energy synchronization failed. "Nullifier rounds target their core vessels," Tessa commanded. Titanic kinetic projectiles, meticulously designed for overwhelming force, hurtled from the human fleet, annihilating the swarm's core vessels with unrelenting accuracy and sheer devastation. Unlike energy-based weapons, the nullifiers bypassed the swarm's adaptive defenses, tearing through their organic hulls with brutal efficiency. Explosions rippled through their formation, scattering debris into the void. Kale watched the display from the command center on Eldrith Prime, his expression shifting from disbelief to cautious optimism. "Remarkable," he muttered. "They're using the swarm's rigidity against them." Morel, the skeptical counselor, stood beside him, her sharp eyes narrowing. "Let's hope their ingenuity holds." If the swarm recalibrates too quickly, this advantage won't last. Kale nodded, his thoughts aligning with her caution. Humanity's arrival had turned the tide, but the swarm was relentless. He turned back to the display, silently willing the humans to keep surprising them. On the swarm's flagship, an imposing biomechanical monstrosity that pulsed with a malevolent red light, the collective mind processed the disruption with mechanical precision. Data streams flowed through the ship, each one analyzing the humans' tactics and adapting countermeasures. A series of rapid clicks and vibrations echoed through the vessel as new commands were issued. In response, the swarm ships began to shift again, their hulls morphing to a smoother, reflective surface. The glowing energy fields surged outward, transforming into dense, mirror-like barriers that scattered incoming attacks across their reflective surfaces, nullifying the nullifier rounds with disconcerting ease. The fleet's formation tightened, focusing their firepower into concentrated bursts aimed directly at the Aegis. "They're targeting us," Zhao reported, his voice steady but urgent. "Let them," Tessa said. "Redirect shield power to the forward arrays and prepare the scatter mines. It's time to change the rules." The Aegis surged forward, drawing the swarm's fire as its shields absorbed the brunt of the assault. From its underbelly, sleek, spherical mines streamed outward, fanning across the void in synchronized precision as they began their activation sequence. The mines emitted electromagnetic pulses in a synchronized pattern, disrupting the swarm's newly adapted defenses. "General, I'd recommend pulling your forces back," Tessa advised through the comms. "This is going to get messy." Kale hesitated for a moment before nodding. "All units, fall back to secondary positions. Give the humans room to work." The Alliance fleet retreated, their ships forming a defensive perimeter as the human fleet pushed deeper into the swarm's formation. The scatter mines detonated in bursts of crackling energy, forcing the swarm ships to scatter and break their cohesion. "We've disrupted their central nodes," Zhao reported. "Their coordination is breaking down." Tessa's smirk returned. "Good. Now let's finish this wave. Target their flagship." "Full barrage?" The Aegis opened fire with a storm of precision volleys, each shot cutting through the darkness with bursts of incandescent energy, illuminating the battlefield in erratic flashes. Surrounding human ships followed suit, their coordinated assault overwhelming the swarm's flagship. The biomechanical vessel shuddered under the onslaught, its red glow flickering before fading entirely. A final explosion sent shockwaves rippling across the battlefield, and the swarm's remaining ships retreated into the depths of space. Cheers erupted across the Alliance comm channels, but Tessa remained focused. "This isn't over," she said, her tone firm. "The swarm doesn't retreat without a plan. Prepare for the next wave." Kale's voice came through the comms, quieter now but filled with newfound respect. "Commander Vale, you've bought us precious time. We'll use it wisely." Tessa allowed herself a small nod. "We're not here to buy time, General. We're here to win." As the human fleet regrouped, the battlefield fell silent once more, the stillness charged with anticipation. The swarm was relentless, but so was humanity. And the battle for Eldrith Prime had only just begun. The void above Eldrith Prime was thick with an electric stillness as both fleets prepared for the impending clash. The swarm had retreated into the darkness, but their disappearance was not a retreat, it was a recalibration. From the bridge of the Aegis, Commander Tessa Vale surveyed the silent battlefield with an expression as cold as the stars. Her hands rested lightly on the console, but her mind was racing. "Zhao, status on enemy movements?" Tessa asked, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Lieutenant Zhao's fingers danced across his console. "No clear trajectory, Commander. They're scattering, but there's a pattern. It looks like they're regrouping near the Kion Belt." Tessa's brow furrowed. The Kion Belt was a region of dense asteroid clusters and gravitational anomalies, where ships faced constant risks of collision and the unpredictable pull of shifting gravitational forces. It was a natural choke point and a dangerous one at that. "They're planning to funnel us," she said. "Smart. But we're not playing by their rules." "Orders?" Zhao prompted. "Deploy recon drones. I want every inch of that sector mapped. And prepare the fleet for a three-pronged offensive. We'll flush them out and box them in before they can regroup." The swarm's flagship loomed in the shadows of the Kion Belt, its biomechanical hull pulsating with crimson light. Within its cavernous interior, the collective mind orchestrated its next move. Streams of data flowed through organic conduits, each stream analyzing humanity's unpredictable tactics. The swarm was relentless, but it was also pragmatic. It knew that brute force alone would not defeat this foe. Through the darkened corridors of the flagship, a new directive rippled outward. Adapt. Overcome. Dominate. The swarm's fleet began to shift once more. Smaller vessels converged in coordinated layers, forming intricate barriers around the core ships, their movements synchronized to shield the fleet's vital nodes. Their reflective energy fields grew more intricate, each one calibrated to repel the nullifier rounds and electromagnetic pulses that had decimated them before. At the center of the formation, a massive construct, larger than anything humanity had faced so far, began to emerge. It was a weapon, a monstrosity designed for one purpose: annihilation. "Commander, we've got visual on the Kion belt," Zhao reported. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the swarm's new formation. Tessa's eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. They've adapted again. And that, she pointed to the massive construct at the center of the fleet. That's new. Kale's voice crackled through the comms. "Commander Vale, do you have eyes on this?" It's enormous." "We see it, General," Tessa replied. "They've built a focal weapon. If it fires, it'll wipe out our fleet in one shot." Kale's tone hardened. "What's your plan?" Tessa's mind worked quickly. The swarm's strength was in their adaptability, but their new strategy left them vulnerable in one key area: their reliance on centralized control. "We'll hit their command nodes," she said. "Cut off the head and the body will collapse." Zhao glanced at her. "That's a lot of firepower between us and their command nodes. Which is why we'll give them something else to focus on," Tessa said, a glint of determination in her eyes. "Prepare the decoy array. And get me a clear path to that weapon." The human fleet advanced, their sleek ships maneuvering with precision through the asteroid field. As they approached the swarm's formation, the decoy array activated. Hundreds of holographic ships flickered into existence around the fleet, projecting deceptive energy signatures while replicating human maneuvers with stunning precision. The swarm's fleet faltered, their sensors overwhelmed by the sudden influx of targets. "Decoys are holding," Zhao reported. "The swarm's splitting their fire." "Good," Tessa said. "Push forward. Target their outer defenses and clear a path for the strike team." The Aegis led the charge, its weapons blazing as it carved through the swarm's living shields. Behind it, a smaller group of human ships broke away, weaving through the chaos to reach the command nodes. The swarm fought back fiercely, but the decoy array's interference gave humanity the edge they needed. On the swarm's flagship, the collective minds seethed with frustration. The humans' tactics defied logic, their unpredictability creating chaos in a system designed for order. The massive construct at the fleet's center began to power up, its energy levels rising as it prepared to fire. "Commander, the weapon's charging," Zhao warned. "Then we don't have time to waste," Tessa replied. "Strike team, focus on the command nodes. Everyone else, keep that weapon off us for as long as you can." The strike team reached the swarm's command nodes, their experimental weaponry slicing through the biomechanical structures. Sparks and organic fluids erupted from the damaged nodes, and the swarm's coordination began to falter. Ships drifted out of formation, their movements erratic as the centralized control network collapsed. "They're breaking apart," Zhao reported. "Not fast enough," Tessa muttered. The construct's energy levels were peaking, and the weapon's core began to glow with a blinding intensity. "All units, concentrate fire on that weapon," Tessa ordered. "We need to take it out now." The human fleet unleashed a final, desperate assault. Missiles and energy beams converged on the construct, tearing through its outer layers. Explosions rippled across its surface, but the weapon continued to charge, its core now pulsing like a dying star. Kale watched from the command center, his hands clenched into fists. "Come on, Vale," he whispered. "You can do this." On the Aegis, Tessa's jaw tightened. "Zhao, prepare the overload cannon. If we're going down, we're taking that thing with us." The overload cannon, humanity's ultimate gamble, was a weapon of sheer destruction, capable of unleashing a cataclysmic blast, but at the dire cost of sacrificing the ship that fired it. Zhao hesitated but nodded. Charging the cannon. As the Aegis lined up its shot, the swarm's weapon fired. A massive beam of energy tore through the void, its destructive power aimed directly at the human fleet. But before it could reach its target, the overload cannon discharged. The Aegis rocked violently as the blast struck the construct's core, detonating it in a catastrophic explosion. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield, obliterating the swarm's remaining ships and scattering debris into the void. Silence fell as the energy dissipated, leaving only the faint glow of Eldrith Prime in the distance. Cheers erupted across the human fleet, but on the Aegis the mood was somber. The overload cannon's discharge had left the ship heavily damaged, its systems barely holding together. Tessa leaned back in her chair, exhaustion etched across her face. "Status?" she asked quietly. "The swarm's fleet is gone," Zhao replied. "But so is the overload cannon. It'll take months to repair." Tessa nodded. "We'll manage." Shards of the swarm's fleet glinted under the harsh glare of Eldrith Prime's twin suns, their metallic wreckage scattered across the void like shattered glass. Fragments of the swarm's once mighty fleet floated aimlessly, their lifeless forms a stark reminder of humanity's hard-won victory. The silence of the void felt profound, as if the galaxy itself held its breath, absorbing the implications of what had just transpired. On board the Aegis, repairs were underway. Engineers worked tirelessly to stabilize the ship's failing systems, while medics moved swiftly through the corridors, tending to the wounded. Commander Tessa Vale stood on the bridge, gazing out at the aftermath. Her reflection in the viewport looked as weary as she felt. "Zhao, status report," she said, her voice subdued but steady. Lieutenant Zhao, his uniform streaked with soot and blood, approached her. "Structural integrity is at 47%. Primary weapons are offline, but shields are holding at minimum capacity. Casualty reports are still coming in." Tessa nodded grimly. "And the fleet?" "Better shape than us," Zhao replied. "We've lost 3 ships but the rest are operational. The swarm's remnants have been neutralized. There's no sign of further hostiles." "For now," Tessa murmured. She knew better than to assume the swarm's threat was completely eliminated. Their adaptability and tenacity had been their greatest strengths. If any fragments of their collective mind had survived, it was only a matter of time before they returned. In the command center on Eldrith Prime, General Cale Veros stood before a holographic display, watching as the human fleet regrouped. The battle was over, but the weight of its cost hung heavy in the air. "What's the latest from the Aegis?" he asked, turning to one of his aides. "Commander Vale reports that the ship is holding together, but it's going to need extensive repairs," the aide replied. "Her crew is intact, but casualties were significant." Cale's expression hardened. "She did what no one else could. Make sure High Command understands that." The aide nodded and hurried off, leaving Cale alone with his thoughts. He had doubted humanity's ability to turn the tide, but now, standing in the shadow of their victory, he felt a deep sense of gratitude and unease. Humanity's unorthodox methods and sheer willpower had saved Eldrith Prime, but they had also revealed something unsettling: the lengths they were willing to go to win. As the hours passed, messages began to flood in from across the galaxy. Allied factions sent congratulations and cautious inquiries, while rival powers took note of humanity's newfound influence. On Velcaris, a key strategic planet that had long been contested, local resistance groups declared allegiance to humanity's cause, inspired by their victory. Tessa read through the reports with a mixture of pride and apprehension. Humanity had demonstrated its potential, capturing the galaxy's focus and reshaping the balance of power in a single, decisive stroke. They were no longer the underdogs, they were a force to be reckoned with, and that came with its own set of challenges. "Commander, incoming transmission from High Command," Zhao announced. Tessa straightened. "Patch it through?" The holographic display lit up with the image of Admiral Selratan, her silver hair gleaming under the light of her command room. Her expression was a mix of sternness and satisfaction. "Commander Vale," Selra began, "you've done the galaxy a great service. The victory at Eldrith Prime is a testament to humanity's ingenuity and determination." "Thank you, Admiral," Tessa replied. "But the cost was high. We're holding together, but barely." Selra's gaze softened slightly. "I understand. Reinforcements and repair teams are en route. You've earned a moment to recover, but don't get too comfortable. The swarm may be broken, but they're not eradicated. We need to prepare for the next phase." Tessa nodded. "Understood, Admiral. We'll be ready." Days turned into weeks as the human fleet remained stationed around Eldrith Prime, overseeing the rebuilding efforts. The air above the ruined capital buzzed with the steady hum of hovering transports, accompanied by the acrid scent of scorched earth mingling with the metallic sharpness of fresh welds, painting a vivid picture of relentless recovery efforts. The planet's once bustling capital was now a landscape of rubble and ash, but its people were resilient. With humanity's guidance, they began to rebuild, their determination mirroring that of their defenders. Colonel Sienna Voss, leading the ground operations, reported steady progress. The infrastructure is stabilizing and the population is rallying, she told Tessa during a briefing. They've seen what humanity can do, and they're ready to stand with us. Good, Tessa said. We're going to need every ally we can get. In the aftermath of the battle, the swarm's true nature became a subject of intense study. Scientists and strategists analyzed the wreckage, uncovering fragments of alien languages and neural schematics that hinted at a decentralized yet highly interconnected collective. Each fragment of wreckage revealed the swarm's chilling history of assimilation, detailing how they had consumed the strengths of countless civilizations while obliterating their uniqueness. What they found was both fascinating and troubling. The swarm had no singular origin point. They were a collective born of countless assimilated civilizations, their strength drawn from diversity and adaptation. They're a reflection of what we could become, Zhao remarked during one such briefing. A mirror of what happens when individuality is sacrificed for efficiency. Tessa considered his words carefully. Humanity's strength had always been its individuality, its capacity for creativity, for defiance, for hope. The swarm had underestimated that, and it had cost them everything. As the fleet prepared to depart Eldrith Prime, a final ceremony was held to honor the fallen. Tessa stood at the forefront, addressing her crew and the gathered civilians. Today we remember those who gave their lives so that others could live, she began, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. Their sacrifice reminds us of what we fight for, a galaxy where freedom and hope can thrive. This victory is not the end, but a beginning. Together we will face whatever comes next. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the ruins. For the first time in years, there was a sense of unity, a belief that the galaxy could stand together against any threat. As the Aegis and its fleet jumped into hyperspace, leaving Eldrith Prime behind, Tessa allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Her thoughts lingered on the lives lost during the battle, each name etched into her memory as a reminder of the sacrifices made. They had fought for more than survival. They had fought for a future where hope could flourish, and she vowed their legacy would guide humanity through the challenges to come. The battle had changed everything. Humanity was no longer an isolated force on the fringes of the galaxy. They were leaders, innovators, and protectors. And while the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, they would face it together. The stars stretched out before them, endless and full of possibility. Humanity's courage and sacrifices had proven their worth, forging a new destiny that would shape the galaxy for generations to come.